new cryo tanks at Massey's, pile work at Sanchez, Ship 33 almost fully stacked at the build site, and Pad B tower reaches full height at the launch site. Additionally, the test rig has 20 pull-down rods installed at Massey's, rebar and embeds installed at Sanchez, the factory and office finally meet at the build site, and Starhopper is destined for a new home at the launch site. Hello, my name is BJ, and welcome to this week's RGV Aerial Photography's Starbase Flyover Update 56. We'll cover these exciting developments and more this week with photos from both high and low altitudes for some interesting views. Get ready for a double whammy, as this episode will cover both flyovers from the 23rd and 30th of August 2024. Let's get started. This week, our pilot Fred makes an appearance in this onboard view from inside the cockpit of the Cessna 172. These flights are only possible with the cooperation and dedication of pilots like Fred. As usual, we will start our tour over at the Massey's rocket testing facility. Here's a labeled map to get you familiar with the layout of the site. Thanks to Proky for creating these. Starting off at the structural test stand, we can see Test Tank 16 has been placed into the stand. The article is undergoing preparations for upcoming tests. The can crusher cap can be seen fitted and finally ready for action after receiving extensive upgrades. This ground photo from Starbase Surfer shows how the cap is fitted to the test article. Consider giving him a follow on X. On the east side of the test structure, a new beam has been installed. It appears to align with aft flap mounts on the article, suggesting that there will be some testing of flap components as well. Around the back of the stand, the installation of access to the upper levels has begun. Near the entrance, a third platform has arrived. Two of them have legs attached for future installation. Above, we can see that the additional tanks have finally arrived and installed for the liquid oxygen side of the tank farm to further increase capacity. Spotted during the flyover on Friday the 30th, the 20 tension rods can be seen installed connecting the cap to the pistons at the bottom of the stand. As speculated, these attach via a thread on the ends of the rams. The 5 larger actuators have yet to be attached. We can see that the hydraulic supply to them is connected, so we can expect to see them used during this latest test. The cryo line can be seen connected at the top of the tank. So far, there seems to be no attachment to the new horizontal bar, speculated to hold actuators to test the flap hinge. There is a device attached to the SQD plate that we have yet to understand its purpose. At the back of the stand, new U-shaped walkways can be seen installed with a staircase. Now let's move over to the Sanchez site. Here's this week's map to get yourself orientated. Let's start with the concrete cutouts that we saw during the last flyover. The CFA drilling rig that was at the launch site moved here to drill some piles. The speculation is that there are at least 2 piles in each cutout. This tells us that whatever they are going to build here will be a heavy structure, aligning with the idea of the OLM for Pad B. If this turns out to be true, there will be much to talk about in the next few weeks. At the transport stand construction area, there hasn't been much progress on replacing the slides and hold-down clamps for the booster transport stand. Now let's take a look at the tower staging area, which is looking quite empty since all the modules have now been transported to the pad and stacked. If we look closely, we see these 4 new black pipe-like structures that could be for the QD arm of Tower B, with these 2 objects that could be hinges. We will keep an eye on here to see how it develops. Moving to the rocket garden, Booster 14.1 is back after some slap testing with the chopsticks. Since then, it has received new lifting points. Here's the view from Labs Cam. This upgrade suggests that SpaceX is not done with this little guy, and some more catch testing will take place soon. Finally, Ship 30 is still being prepared for testing in flight. Recently, it received more decals, adding Mechazilla to the vehicle, and more signs that SpaceX is all in for a catch attempt during Flight 5. Now let's take a look at what happens 7 days after. At the mystery footings, rebar is being installed ahead of concrete pouring, but before that, these embeds will be placed on top and connected to the rebar below. This significant sign suggests a heavy structure will be built here. Speculation is still the OLM for Pad B. Back at the booster transport stands, finally the new hold-down arms were installed onto the most completed one, with no progress on the other one as usual. As we mentioned, this happened to address the rust issue with the old ones. Very slow progress is seen on the speculated booster aft assembly workstand and its turntable. It looks like this is not the top priority for Star Factory at the moment. Moving to the storage site, clearing work started again with the removal of another shelf of hardware. This is likely happening because all of that hardware was for Block 1 ships and boosters. Rolling to the chopstick staging area, some accumulators were removed from the carriage to swap the old ones on the Tower 1 chopsticks. SpaceX knows how not to waste time and money. Finally, at the Rocket Garden again, Booster 14.1 is getting ready for additional catch testing. This time the lifting pins have some attachment points for a crane to lift it. Additionally, it appears that a fill port was installed on the top of the forward dome, likely to fill it with water for ballast. We will probably see it roll to the pad very soon ahead of drop tests with the chopsticks. Now let's take a look at the build site. Let's first look at a labeled map of this week's updates. We begin this week at Mega Bay 2, where a partially open door allows us to see the engine access platforms have now been installed on the front left workstand. On August 23rd, the aft engine section of Ship 33 was moved to Mega Bay 2 with stacking happening that evening. In this clip from Lab Padre, the new system of multiple downcomers can be seen hanging below the liquid oxygen tank. Version 2 ships feature 3 dedicated feeds for methane to the RVAC engines. Mega Bay 1 remains largely as we saw last week. The grid fin motors seen in the doorway appear to have been moved, possibly installed on one of the boosters. Chine parts continue to be staged inside and outside the door. To the left of the doorway, 4 grid fins are staged for installation, likely on Booster 13 as the next in sequence without them installed. Next door, at the high bay, Ship 31 continues to see limited work on its tiles. Behind the Star Factory, some organization has been done by Tent 4 with the aft flap racks cleared off. We saw the first chiller unit for the office delivered last week. All 5 of them are now in place with electricians running wire to power them. In the ring yard, we see 5 single rings that may have failed quality control. 2 of these were flattened during the flyover. At the office, glass installation for the 4th level has started on the right. In this image, you can see the multiple stages of preparation. Brackets appear to be tacked in place by the welder on the far left, with final welding being done by other crews, and then painters follow behind before final installation. The framing continues for extending the factory to the office. Floor decking is being laid out on the 2nd floor. We see on the outer wall angled framework that suggests the glass will angle to the office, mirroring the far end of the factory. Behind the front section, this week also sees progress into the full-height factory space, including bridge crane rails. A final stop at the village, foundation concrete is being poured at the prospective sushi restaurant. 1 street away, another home is being built with the foundation slab also being poured. The rec center dirt work seems to have wrapped up for now with a nicely graded mound. Now leaving the August 23rd flyover, we'll go back to the future and see what's going on 1 week later on the 30th. Here's a new labeled map. In Mega Bay 2, Ship 33 was moved to the center ship workstation after it was completely stacked last week. Later it was moved to the rear left stand. To the rear, concrete work has resumed along the perimeter. Stopping at Mega Bay 1, we see the final methane section of Booster 15 ready for stacking. Once this happens, the methane section can be stacked atop the LOX tank. The barrel section was moved into the bay on August 30th. Over at the high bay, the scaffolding previously surrounding Ship 31's heat shield has been removed. This, along with the SPMTs under the mobile ship static fire stand in Sanchez, could possibly mean we'll see a move to Massey's for static fire testing. It's worth noting that heat shield work on this ship has been limited, so its future is still unknown. In the former ring yard area, concrete is being poured as drainage work finally finishes up. Behind the Star Factory, the aft flap racks have been moved to the other side of Tent 4. They were moved via the Ring Yard, Highway 4, and San Martin Boulevard. This new location should make it easier for them to enter the factory. Over by the new office building, the grassy plot of land that SpaceX recently purchased has been further prepared for future foundations, and nearby concrete work has continued next to the office. Taking a look at this angled photo, steel from the Star Factory extension has reached the office building's roof, and the laying of roof panels has begun. Moving back around, small strips have been cut in the wall cladding of the tallest part of Star Factory to allow the extension to connect to the existing structure. Insulation is being lifted up for installation on the roof of the office building. Over at the village, the rec center has a swimming pool dug out. This should be a welcome relief during the South Texan warmer months. Footing work continues at the sushi bar, and house construction has once again resumed on some of the remaining blocks. With that, let's check in at the launch site. Let's first look at the labeled map featuring 2 fully stacked towers. Let's take a look at the completed stack of Tower 2. It only took 41 days, with Module 9 being stacked on August 21st. Getting a little closer, let's check progress on the flame trench. There isn't much of new insights, but we can see that the southern sheet pile wall has continued to progress. Additionally, the jet grouting has moved further as well. This week's progress seems to suggest we may have to wait a little longer for the next phase to start. These renders from Chrome Kiwi give us some insight into what the jet grouting, piles, and excavation may look like. Looking from the north, we see work around the base has picked up. The base extension now has floor decking installed. The pipework for filling the legs has been disconnected at the top of the base. Nearby, we can see the LTR 1220 appears to be preparing to lift one of the base wall cap pieces in place. Utility work continues from the 3 vaults seen next to the tower. Conduits have now extended into the base of the tower. Extending from the concrete bunker, a trench is being dug in the general direction of where the vault conduits may have stopped. This trench does not line up with the cutout in the bunker, so it seems like it may house both electrical and cryo plumbing. To the north of the bunker, concrete has been removed toward the existing electrical bunker, hinting that additional trenches may extend in this direction to feed power to Pad B. The tank farm has been rather quiet for another week. The 3 pill-shaped water tanks have had scaffold assembled on both ends, possibly to make repairs to the cladding that was damaged during Flight 4. A little way farther down, one of the large steel beams seen recently is being prepared. Its use remains a mystery, so we wait another week to find answers. Shifting over to the OLM, we can see that the burn plate commented on last week turned out to be the first of many panels installed on the top of the BQD hood. It comes as no surprise that the chopsticks continue to see the most attention. This week, they were opened on both sides of the OLM, seemingly to allow more lifts to position below to maximize the amount of work that can be done at once. On the inner end of the right chopstick's landing rail, we can see the lifting jig for dampeners is in place for removal. After a long wait for repairs, the Ship Quick Disconnect has seen upgrades that should eliminate the damage of recent launches. Below the SQD, a bar has been attached that rests on 2 uprights attached to the SQD arm. This week has also seen the return of scaffolding on Tower 1. It appears that the connection points of the tower cross beam and diagonals might be undergoing inspections or possible fortifications. Finally, in the area of the methane offload point, we've seen additional gusset plates, some that are stored in these vertical racks. With 2 flyovers this episode, here are the updates to the launch site map. Images from August 30th show the final roof framing of Module 9 has been completed. At the flame trench, the second row of sheet piles appears to be completed, with a third row now forming. Within the main flame trench area, some backfill has been added to cover the southern end. This location might be a prime spot for the assembly of the chopsticks and carriage before installation on the tower. At the base of Tower 2, the two base caps are installed with the concrete pipework reconnected. This week has seen activity suggesting the legs of Module 1 have been filled. Here we also see that the stop block for the chopstick carriage has been installed on the south leg of the tower. Within the tower base, the conduits are now encased in concrete and dyed red to indicate power is below. A mini excavator can now be seen inside the bunker. With the trench excavations, it seems the missing floor along the east was to allow electrical conduits to pass through under that side. To the north of the bunker, a trench is now being excavated where the concrete was removed the previous week. Looking across the street from the launch site, the purpose of a recent transport closure from the launch pad to the parking lot becomes clear. Footings have been prepared here for Starhopper to make a short move. Crews were spotted installing lift hardware just days after this flyover. At the OLM, we can see the clamp alignment jig resting on the center tower of scaffold. It would later be lifted out on September 1st. Looking just above, we continue to see catch preparations to the chopsticks. In this image, the left chopstick has more than half of its catch bumpers installed. Closer to the hinge point, the hard stop points that prevented the arms from traveling too close to each other are no longer attached. Some additional gusset plating in that area has also been removed. Early thoughts were that they were getting in the way of closing during testing. Newer activity suggests that they are simply in the way of adding additional reinforcement. Looking on the right chopstick near where the stop was removed, the new mitered tube doublers are being installed. Jumping over to the work area in front of the Deluge tank farm, we can see where many of these chopstick reinforcements are being fabricated. Within this hardware, we see the two hard stops, as well as many of the tube doublers. We'll finish with one last look at Tower 1, where we see at the top of the tower, the new gusset plates seen installed recently at the lower levels are being installed where the scaffold has been installed. At the very top, we also see that paneling is being added to the roof framing. The extension over the drawworks pulleys also appears to be getting a reinforcing framework, possibly for a better supported worker access like we see on top of Tower 2. And that's it for episode 56 of Starbase Flyover Update. Thank you for choosing to fly with RGV Aerial Photography, and I hope you enjoyed the flight. If you like what you saw today, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more episodes and content so you don't miss out on the new videos each week. I'd like to also give a shout out to our Patreon members who offer insights from their individual areas of expertise during the show and tell sessions following each flyover. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week from 10,500 feet.